Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 17th edition of Black Professionals Month. We are a little bit over halfway through, and we're so happy that you're here with us today. And we are here to celebrate Black professional excellence and also convene and gather so that we can build a trusted online community of Black professionals worldwide. We are here to step up, stand out, and break through in the higher roles of leadership and to generate sustained wealth. Okay, I am really excited to take this. This will be the third session in our series about servant leadership and a servant leader's heart. And today we're going to talk about 7 best practices putting servant leadership into action. So as we go through this, I'm going to ask that any questions, thoughts, or comments that you have to go ahead and to add, jump in, whatever you're comfortable with. And it's really interesting. I like this quote by Bishop Dale Bonner, and he says, "If serving is below you, then leadership is beyond you." And so true leaders really have a servant's heart. And I thought it was just really good to start today's session in talking about how willing are you to serve? And one of the things that is really critical in servant leadership is the necessity to have just that, a servant's heart. There is a quote, and I'm not sure, I've heard someone apply this or, give credit to Muhammad Ali for it, but I think actually Mother Teresa, is one of the people that may have originally said that, and service is the rent that we pay for living here on earth. Service is just really about love. And when it comes down to what we have as the directive from God above and from Jesus Christ, our number one thing is to love one another. And the only way that you can do that truly is by serving one another. And so if you feel like that service and serving is something that doesn't work for you, that's really going to limit your impact. And when we talk about leadership is always a inclusive dynamic. It's not just about what you do on a job or in an organization. It's about what you do in terms of your own self and how you lead and your relationship with all others. It can be parents, it can be children, it can be spouses, significant others, other members of your family, friends, associates, colleagues, whatever it may be. But you really have to have a true heart that is willing to serve and to help others if you truly want to be a servant leader. Okay, so as I was referring to this particular screen and what you heard me talking about, I was referring to a quote by Bishop Dale Bonner out of Atlanta. And the quote is, "If serving is below you, then leadership is beyond you." And so as you heard me talk about that, I'm going to go to the next slide. And hopefully you guys seeing me okay in terms of the share?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So the next, words to lead by, if you will, and as we're talking about a servant's heart, is the need of the servant leader to build up people versus looking for his people to build him up or build her up. And, it says a lot of times, we have egotistical leaders and even sometimes narcissistic leaders. And our past president, probably a really good example of a narcissist, but most leaders do tend to enjoy a pretty high degree of accolades and stroking and, those kind of things that reaffirm, or affirm them in terms of who they are. And by being a leader, that is something that they're really driven by. But I think that when it comes to servant leadership, the heart changes. The heart changes in wanting to not only serve others, but to build others up. And my joy, my fulfillment, my success, I begin to change the metrics of it. Not so much by how my leadership is being perceived and what people are saying about me, but what are people saying about my people? how are my people feeling about themselves? You know, there's a quote that I saw once that a true leader spends more time helping others, and that it's about how they feel about themselves versus how they feel about the leader. It's almost the Maya Angelou quote when she says, people don't remember what you say and what you do, but they remember how you make them feel. And I think it really is something for servant leaders to constantly keep in mind. You know, it's not so much about how people feel about you being their leader, but how you as a leader make them feel about themselves. And a servant leader really spends time understanding the needs, the aspirations of that person that is on their team. And of course, when there's more than one person on the team, you know, they have to understand all of them. And everybody's not the same. And so you have to treat people differently. You have to also be willing to meet people where they are. You know, all too often as leaders, we want people to meet us where we are. Come with me, be here with me, do this with me. But no, as a servant leader, I need to be there with you, go there with you, and be in your space and help you to grow from where you are. You know, there's that old saying that says, bloom where you're planted. Well, when it comes to servant leadership, then we want to make sure that wherever our people are planted, that is where we're helping them to bloom. That's where we are watering, cultivating, and nurturing them. And in terms of building them up, it's not so much about how you compliment somebody and just, if you will, blue sky everything, because that's not necessary to be a servant leader. So if you're running a company and the company has objectives and missions that are important in terms of how you look at things like productivity, results, and outcomes, it is not incongruent for a servant leader to meet those things. As a matter of fact, it's more congruent, because one of the things that you do is that you help that person that you're leading to understand their role and help them to see where what they do impacts the overall goal, mission, and vision for the company or the organization that they're working for. And then continue to respond, communicate with them, give them feedback based upon what they're doing and how what they're doing is impacting the overall organization, and where they need to either be positively reinforced because of what they're doing to contribute to that, or where they need to get some assistance in order to build them up to be able to do a better job and fulfill what they do. That's what you do, but it's really about building them up and tying it to what the organization is all about. And that organization can also be a family. I mean, families have missions and goals and objectives. Our mission as a family is to love one another and support each other, be there for one another, you know, to lift each other up. And so as a family, when it comes to the parents, mother, and the father, who are leaders generally in a family, then you've got to build your children up. We can't beat our children down and expect that beating them down is what's going to convert them into being, you know, true parts of the family that feel good and want to. How are you going to ask somebody to love somebody else, but then you do that by beating them down? It just doesn't work that way. And so as a servant leader, we look to build up people, helping them to feel better about themselves, helping them to see where they are contributing to whatever is going on, whether it's a family organization, whether it's a company organization, how what they do contributes to the success of that organization. When you do that, and then you catch them when they are actually making positive contributions and reward them. The reward could be monetary, the reward can be just a pat on the back, the reward could be a kind word, or it could be a congratulatory note. It could be anything, you know, and it doesn't have to be one versus the other. And yes, you get to know your people. You also know what really motivates them more. And that's where you lean into them. That's where you lean into the kind of things that we know that make sense, that helps to build them up. And so I'm going to stop right now and talk about and ask you to share with me anything that your thoughts about how you go about building up people versus looking for people to build you up in the leadership roles that you have in your organization or in your family?
I will break the ice. So I just in let me gather my thought. So I will just talk about my my role as in my business as a business owner. The thing that I do most with my staff, and they talk a lot about it, is empowering them and giving them the right impression that we're on the same level. We're growing, we're building. So one of the things though that they seem they've never seen it in the places that they've been before, is the fact that I tell them your family comes first, right? But how we train across the board, if you have to go, Debbie can pick up on it, or Maria can pick up on it, or something. I have five staff members. Well, one just resigned, and she resigned also because my goal for them was, how I find you when you're leaving me, you must be much better. And it was a amicable leaving. She had an opportunity, and that's where her mind was from beginning. So she was just kind of helping me. So I tell my staff I train them to be on the same level with me. I train them to be respectful of each other. I train them also that I am nowhere, in no form or shape, better or above them. So it's a team, it's a true, in a sense of a team, because we all have a part to play in the full circle. So we cross-train and we talk. And I think that is a good practice. And it so happened that about 3 months ago, I read The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. And I was on point with a lot of things that he said, so I kind of take real good, I could take pleasure in like working with my team and just making them feel that it's not a boss relationship we have. We're just together. So that's what I want to share on that part.
Okay. Was there something else that you wanted to share, Debbie?
Well, actually, I wanted to talk about my daughter and just how I lead with her with school and chores and whatnot. She, even last night, we had what I would call a meltdown, because what she wanted to go out to skating, but her room was not clean and she could not leave the house in my end like that. So, but at the end of it, we were praying because she was crying real hard. She wanted to go, and she thought I deceived her because I told her she could go, and now I'm changing my mind. But she didn't hear the part that there was a condition on which you should go. But at the end of it, I allowed her to cry and create her noise and carry on. And I said to her, Edie, your room is such a mess. I will sit with you and I will help you, but you are not going. You are just not going. But the way I did it, it wasn't like, like a hard stick over her. Because as we go through cleaning the room, I go through talking to her about my decision, why she is not. Because the room was so messy. It took us like probably about an hour and a half to clean the way I wanted it to clean, So it's like, I always do that with her. And part of it is because she has the Tourette's, and stress bring it on. So even last night I said, Edie, because she started having it. And I said, okay, I'll sit with you while you go through it. And I'll do the same thing that I generally do to calm you, but I cannot, stop being the mother. So it was a good experience, because at the end, she apologized, we cried, we prayed, and then we watched a movie, which was hilarious, and went to bed. So I think even in that area of leading, you have to set that example, set the boundaries, be strict with it, and they will accept it. And Eden is 15, so she's learning a lot.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. I think that, one of the things that you're doing that I think is so progressive. And when I grew up, okay, so I'm going to not put anybody into my generation, if you will. But when I grew up, parents didn't necessarily tell you why they did anything. The why was because I said do it. That was pretty much the only why that you got. There was no enlightening conversation, no insights into why you were doing something and the value of it and the benefits of it. You just pretty much do it because I told you to do it, and you know what would happen typically if you didn't want to take that as an answer, what was kind of coming after that. But I think, we're in a different, generation, we're in a different era. And things continue to evolve and continue to become usually a little more enlightened. And I think that one of the things that we've understood better is that, people are not robots, and the philosopher Nietzsche, said something years ago that, continues to be, I think, very insightful to how, we have to really think about leadership. And again, like we were just talking now, leadership is a lot more than just what you do on the job. But it's real simple. It says, people can endure anyhow if they know the reason why. Okay. I mean, gosh, man, how many times have you found out why something happened and it made such a big difference in terms of how you perceived, what you were being asked to do, what was going on, or what was the circumstance? The reason why makes such an impact on your perception and your ability to deal with whatever it is that's going on. And so, yeah.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So as you're talking, I'm just excited about the lady that came on. I forgot her name on the sessions this week and last week. She was talking about having to lay off those people. And that was so powerful. Yeah. It's like
Scottish lady. Yeah.
Yeah. To sit with them, to talk with them, and to tell them why. And it was like, what, 300 or 400 people? She had to sit with them. That was powerful. That was powerful because she had to tell them why. You don't just, and I love that. Is that a quote you just did a while ago? Yeah,
that's he's dead now, old time psychiatrist named Nietzsche, philosopher. And that quote is, people can endure anyhow when they know the reason why.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna move back over to the PowerPoint, and I saw something there from Dr. Deb about context. Context definitely makes all the difference in the world, and kind of understanding, what we're doing and what we're going through at times, for sure. And that speaks, very much to, the why. Another, kind of take on some of the things we've just been talking about, and there's a quote from guy that Debbie just mentioned, John Maxwell. And he says, the measure of a leader is not the number of people who serve him, but the number of people he serves. And so, there was also something in one of the videos that I've shown in the past couple of weeks that says, if you want to impact and have, a true impact on people, then find as many people as you can to serve, and that's going to have an impact. So if you serve a few, you'll impact a few. If you serve a lot, you'll impact a lot. If you serve many, then you will impact many. And that's where your influence will come from. Your influence comes from how you impact people. And you can impact people for good, you can impact people for negative, you can impact, for bad, or you can impact people to have a positive feeling about you. And that positive feeling always comes when you really understand it in terms of how that person makes you feel about yourself. I mean, can you really feel good about somebody who makes you feel bad about yourself? Whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent, human nature generally does not allow us to feel good about somebody who does not make us feel good about ourselves. So there are some real basic principles that, we really have to pay a lot of attention to if we truly want to lead with a servant's heart. And so, keeping in mind, if you really want to impact many and have influence in this world, then go and find as many people as possible to serve. This is one of my favorite quotes. All too often, and we just kind of talked about this a little bit. Do what I say because I said so, and that's leading by the authority. Okay. But when you lead by the strength of your ideas, rather than the authority of your position, you get buy-in. You get people who feel an equitable part of what you're doing. You get people who believe, and when obstacles come up, challenges come up, they're not going to be so easy and so quick to fold because they believe in what they're doing. They believe in the ideas that they've bought into. They believe in the vision. But if you just tell somebody to do something and do it because I said so and I'm in authority, the first thing that goes wrong, they're going to fold like a wet napkin. I mean, it's not going to be funny, and it's true. Just think about if anyone has ever told you to do something that you felt like was not right thing to do, you didn't understand why you were doing it, and you went about doing it and something didn't work. Did you, stop and really try to figure it out? I would say that you probably did not. You probably gave up on it and quit. And it's because you had no buy-in to whatever it was that you were doing. So leading by the strength of your ideas rather than the authority of your position can really strengthen, if you will, the individuals who are following you, supporting you, working with you to make things happen when they run into, whether it's blowback, challenges, obstacles. They're going to be more committed to trying to figure out, how to get past them because they believe in what they're doing and they want to see it through. Leading with a servant heart, you will take more than your share of the blame and less than your share of the credit. I had a situation a couple of years ago where something went wrong at an event. And quite honestly, I had put someone in charge that they failed. But I took the responsibility for it. And it never occurred to me that because I was taking the responsibility of the share or the blame for what happened, how it was going to turn around and impact the way I guess people perceive me and the way folks were able to, I guess, kind of get past, what happened. And I'll never forget that when the event was over, there was a guy on the production team who came up to me, and not obviously, but I didn't know this guy and he didn't know me. And but he walked up to me and says, the way you got up there and took the blame, and you didn't blame anybody else, you didn't put it on anyone else, you took it all yourself. He said, I've never seen anybody do that before. I've seen so many times where the other opposite happens. I just wanted to tell you and just say that I just was really impressed by that. And the fact that he was kind of moved to do that just really, spoke a lot to me. A team needs to know that when they go into battle with you, and I'm obviously using that in a very loose way, that if something goes wrong, that you're not going to turn on them, that you're not going to throw them under the bus. You're not going to kick them out of the boat. A team needs to really feel confident that no matter what, if it goes well, that, they're going to be recognized. If it goes wrong, they're going to have somebody who's leading that team that's going to step in with them and not throw them under the bus. Makes so much difference in the world in terms of their enthusiasm, their commitment to whatever's going on. Everybody here, I'm sure, knows that you've got somebody that if you had to be in a fight, if you were in a battle, if you were going through something tough, and they using kind of those military terms, if you're in a foxhole, there are certain people that, you're like, I want this person with me if I'm in a foxhole, but there are other people you're like, heck no, there's no way in the world I'd want them in a foxhole with me because I know they're going to turn and run or blame somebody else if something goes wrong. They're not going to step up and really be responsible. That's what a leader does. A leader really does take more than a share of the blame and less than a share of the credit. Let me ask, has anyone ever been in a situation where you saw a leader who took more than their share of the blame and less than their share of the credit, and how did that turn out? Has anyone had a situation like that that you've experienced?
I had a situation where a leader stood up during a conference, and that was pretty large. It was a few years back, and stood up and did that. Stood up, and it wasn't about blame. Well, he did take on the blame, but he said basically that the buck stopped with him. And then he celebrated the people that were on his team, and elevated the fact that our goal and our passion is to always serve, to do better. But he was the example. He was the example of do no harm was his motto. Do no harm to the people. He would accept anything, but he would not do anything to hurt the people. And I think because of that, we literally gave up time, energy, effort, everything to support, because we knew that he supported us. He supported us.
I mean, how does it feel when you don't believe that the person is leading does not have your back?
It's a factor of trust for me. And I think it's a factor of willingness to step out further and do things. You know how you're working with someone and they said, go ahead, your decision, take control, do all that stuff. But then if they zap you, then it's like, whoa, wait a minute. You said that, but you really didn't mean it. Or, it's negative. So it's a matter of trust for me. I want a person to do what they said, not just a talking head, but a talking heart.
Yeah,
yeah. So that's the way I look at it. Your heart is a reflection of how you treat people, and I think that makes a huge difference for me.
Has anyone experienced when there was a situation that you were on a team and that the leader of the team was being showered with praise and accolades because everything went well, or things were going well, maybe not everything, but things went well. And that leader said, hey, I am the leader. And so I thank you for, the positive feedback and the recognition. But I got to tell you, I wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for these other people on my team. And I want to recognize them right now, because without them, I would not have been able to accomplish this. Has anyone ever experienced either seeing that happen or being as part of the team that when that happened? Anyone ever had that experience? Well, that's a shame if no one's never had that experience. Get on my team.
No, you didn't.
Debbie. I had many of the opposite. I've had many of the opposites.
Okay. The funny thing is that I'm that kind of person, right? However, I learned it through some people that were in very high positions. And I think that is a powerful thing to do, because especially in the church arena, I've worked with major churches before, and when you see that, it is just so just awe. And when they thank their spouse, when they thank their all of those things, because it took all those things to make everything happen, because somebody else is doing some other things. So yeah, I've seen it a lot, but a lot of time I've seen the other, when early on in my career, especially, and even for the government, sometimes they have the tendency of patting themselves on the back and how great art thou. And I think the team then sits back and say, like, okay, so if they're not servants, they like, okay, no problem, gotcha. So I think so I've seen it, I've been a part of it, and I've been it, but I think that's the best place to be, because for me anyway, what I found is when you lead and it's not serve, then as soon as the person is not there, then everything changes. People are not engaged, or they're not supportive, or something happens when they leave. But when they show back up, everybody is in place, you know, because they're showing the boss that they're who they are, you know, how supportive they are.
Got it. Well, you know, I asked the question from the positive perspective because I don't want to always throw out negative examples.
Yeah, and I want to say something just for a minute too. With me, I tried to cultivate, especially after reading that book I mentioned, that habit of really recognizing the best in people, right? But as the owner and putting out my like my reports that I have to do, I have people, I always get the thank you and how well I write and whatnot. But it is Mara who is doing the writing, not me. But I kind of take the credit on a one-on-one because you don't want people to actually think, okay, you're not doing anything. But I always go back to Mara and I said, Mara, I just took your credit. They love the way I write, which I know it's you writing, but thank you so much. So I just wanted to interject that a minute.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's appropriate because, you know, you have somebody who is working on your behalf, basically as a ghostwriter, and the intention is for it to be you. So, you know, you're not doing anything disingenuous or less than honorable by taking that credit. But I think, you know, the fact that, you know, you are, you know, self-aware and conscious and intentionally making sure that you tell Mara that, hey, you know, you got some nice accolades today. It made me look good. Thank you, girl. I mean, that's all anybody really wants. You know, they're not really looking for a whole lot more than that. You know, and it's amazingly almost criminal that people are not more considerate and forthcoming with folks in terms of, you know, sharing praise and positive comments, because it's actually relatively easy. I mean, how long did it take for you to say, hey, Mara, that you did a great job. I got a nice compliment today, you know, and but man, it can go such a long way, you know, and that impact. And so, you know, I can remember one time, I tell the story years ago. I was just kind of getting into my professional career, and I was a part of this a professional networking group in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. And I was at this luncheon. And so the speaker was, you know, acknowledging people, you know, that were raising their hands for questions. And so I had my hand up, but there was a guy who I knew had his hand up, you know, probably like 2 or 3 minutes before I did. And so the guy called on me. And so when the guy called on me, I said, hey, well, this guy over here, and I didn't even know who he was, white guy, and he's had his hand up for a while, so I think you should take his question, and then you can go back to me, you know. And so he did. Man, did you know that white boy went around and told this story at least 10 times in my presence, that I did that and how he couldn't believe? And I'm thinking like, heck. I mean, I really didn't think about anything else. I just like, hey, this guy's had his hand up, and, you know, I knew the speaker just probably missed him, you know. And so you know, the impact of a good deed, okay, a well-placed word, okay, a positive action, man, you just never know how far that thing goes. And matter of fact, I ended up marrying, well, my first wife, her uncle and aunt lived across the street from this guy, okay, and this happened several years later. And so one time I came back, there was a family event at their house, and he happened to be there. Oh, he told the story again. I mean, he told the story with enthusiasm. And, you know, I'm like, the greatest thing since sliced bread, since we're according to this guy. So, you know, it's just amazing just what a single act of kindness and appreciation, generosity, whatever it is, how it can really just have impact that can be ongoing. All right, let me go back in here.
Coach, before you go back in and we run out of time,
Mm-hmm.
You said something a minute ago I want to chime in on.
Okay.
When you asked that question, you said you tried to put it in a positive light, and you could believe nobody had that experience with their leaders.
Yeah.
It occurred to me the value then of what you're doing with this presentation, because it's been my experience that most leaders don't get this whole servant thing. They, because they are leaders and people look at them that way, they expect to be it, and they expect everybody to look at them as if they are it. And I think there's a handful of them that actually thinks like this. And that's unfortunate because people think that leaders are what they usually see, and they don't realize that it's that a true leader, a leader that I guess is worth being in that position, I guess from a spiritual standpoint, has his team or her people in mind whenever something happens. So it's not unusual for people not to have that experience, because most people in those positions, and when you think about politicians and anybody who's in any position where they get lots of attention, it's been my experience. That's what they're there for. And you wonder all the time, who's running this place? And I mean this entire place. But because the leaders don't have the people in mind, when they, many times, I guess by and large, our Western conception of what leadership is I'm in charge and you do what I say. And if you don't, then there's hell to pay. So that's just kind of where we live. So it's been around a long time, we know, for at least 2,000 years, but they don't quite pay attention to that particular leader as much as they do the one we just got shed of, as my dad would say.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I appreciate that, Deb. And the next, so there were 7, and I think we're on 6 now, best practices for servant leaders. And so if you just joined us in the past few minutes, you know, we're looking at best practices for servant leadership. We've been talking about the servant heart and how that shows up, how it manifests itself in what we do in order to demonstrate that we have a servant's heart. So here at number 6, treat people as if they were, this may be number 5, excuse me. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you can help them become what they are capable of being. Say that one more time. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them become what they are capable of being. So, you ever work with someone who had abilities that, for whatever reason, they did not either demonstrate or put to work either at all or as good as you knew that they were capable of being? Sometimes this manifests itself in people who tend to shy away from, being out front. As I sit here and say that, I'm reminded, and I guess, we talk about things that we've experienced. And so my life is things, obviously, that I've experienced. But I remember when I first got into this business that I'm in now with ICABA, and it started with Who's Who in Black South Florida. And that started out as a business initiative or platform that was created for my late wife when we first moved to South Florida. And she wasn't finding the job that she was looking for, in part because they were telling her, hey, you've got great credentials, but you don't know anybody, and you're in private banking and you need to know somebody. And so we ended up finding out about this Who's Who publication and decided to start. And we decided, well, if it goes well, we keep on doing it. If it doesn't go well, at least you'll get to meet a lot of people, and hopefully that'll open up some opportunities for, career advancement. And my wife was, definitely the person that kind of wanted to be in the background for the most part. As a matter of fact, I remember saying to her once, when you're in, she had to take on a sales role, and she had never really been in sales before. She had worked on, business development for the bank, but sales is really kind of a whole different animal. And so I can remember her coming home to me and says, how the heck do people schedule an appointment with you and you go to their office to meet with them and they don't show up? Or they're not there, or you call to confirm the appointment and they act like you don't know what you're talking about. So I kind of smiled and I said, well, baby, that welcome to my world. So I manage salespeople who go through that every day, and I have to help them to get through that. And so I encouraged her, to just kind of stay with it. And one of the things I said to her, I said, listen, if you would do these 3 things, and I outlined 3 things, when it gets to the point where we're at the end of this process, people will be calling you instead of you calling them, And so I said, just keep the vision in mind. She says, I hear you. Tell you what, you just tell me what I need to do. You keep the vision and I'll do that. Well, when this process was all over, one of the things that the vision that I had was that she would be on stage. There would be an overflow crowd of people where the event was being held. And I knew that she had natural speaking ability. She was great with people. She had natural poise, and that this was going to almost kind of force her into a role of command and leadership that she would have never went after herself. And when that happened, just as I knew that it could and believed that it would, it was something that really, as I sit here and talk to you guys right now about treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you can help them become what they are capable of being. That was something that I've accomplished in my life that will always be, for me, one of the most fulfilling things that I ever did. And we have people that we engage with all the time who either won't go after something because it's not their natural, if you will, comfort zone, and you help them to get out of their comfort zone, as I did, with my late wife. Or there are people who don't realize that they have a talent that you can help them to build up or to encourage. Or sometimes they just need to speak up for themselves. Or sometimes they just need to go and do something that they've been saying that they're going to do, but for whatever reason they don't do it. There's a lot of different ways, to help people. But when you, know that someone has maybe a lack of self-esteem, and you treat them like they're the greatest thing and you believe in them, that helps them to have a greater self-esteem. If you know someone has the ability, let's say someone that they can sing, but they're afraid to go sing in public, and you treat them like they're already a great singer and they've already wowed an audience and gotten a standing ovation, I guarantee you'll help that person to overcome their fear of getting in front of people and using their God-given talent. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you will help them become what they are capable of being. I really like this, and it's kind of an interesting quote from Mandela. And he says, if you want the cooperation, and it's always interesting, he used the word humans. If you want the cooperation of humans around you, you must make them feel they are important. And you do that by being genuine and humble. In order for people around you to rise, sometimes it's necessary for you to take a step back. And when you do that, you have to be genuine in taking that step back. It can't be fake. It can't be a put on or an act, because, man, people see through stuff so easy and so fast. God has given us that intuitiveness for most of us to really know when someone's being sincere and when someone is being genuine or not. But if you really want people to work with you, if they feel like that they are less than you, if they feel like that you don't respect them, you don't value them, and they are just there to fulfill a task or to do a job, but other than that, they have no level of import to what's going on in terms of their humanness, their value as a person, you don't have a servant's heart. You're not going to get the best out of them. In order for you to get the best out of anybody, you have to be focused on helping them to be their best. Real simple. In order for you to help people to do their best, you have to be committed, intentional, consistent in helping them to be their best. And their best is not your best or anyone else's best. It is what they're best at. What are they best at doing? What is the God-given talent and gift that they have? There is I used to work for Cox Radio and Cox Broadcasting, and they had a company, and they had a philosophy. They had a company that supported their broadcast entities in terms of talent acquisition, development, retention, and so on. And they believe very much in the talent-focused management approach. Talent-focused management, pretty simple, says, first thing is get the right people on the bus in the right seat. I mean, everything starts there. But once they're on board, identify that person's true talent and lean into that talent with them. All too often, managers and leaders focus on the things that that person or the individual working with them is not talented at. What is it that you're not doing well? What is it that you're doing wrong? What is it that you don't have the capability of doing? And so we spend so much time focused on trying to get somebody to do something better. And, you know, one of the things is when I was in sales management, all too often sales managers who had someone that may be a good salesperson in terms of generating revenue, closing deals, building relationships, might be a poor writer or not well organized. Organization was definitely something that was key to being good at sales. So you work with them on that. But sometimes not being a good writer, you could do a workaround. And that's one of the things that servant leaders do. They figure out, what are you really good at? So if you've got somebody who has no problem establishing new relationships, can handle the rejection of calling, 10, 15, 20 people a day and knowing they're only going to get a call back or maybe get a meeting from 3 to 5 of them, but they keep going at it day after day, but they may not be the best writer in the world, and you're going to spend time beating them up about not being able to write? No, you're going to spend time enabling them to spend more time doing those things that they do well and find some way to offset or work around those things that they don't do well. And so that's when you make that person feel important, despite whatever shortcoming they may have, because you know what? Look in the mirror, folks, you got some shortcomings too. And if the people that you've dealt with leaned into your shortcomings all the time versus those things that you did well, you probably wouldn't be where you are today. So we really have to be very conscious of helping people to be their best. And we really do that by reinforcing and affirming those things that they do well, that they are important, and you do it genuinely, and you do it with humility. That humility is also critical, because if you don't have the ability to recognize somebody above yourself in terms of how you communicate with them, they're never going to feel like that what you're saying is totally genuine, totally humble. You can't give backhanded compliments, and expect someone to really feel like that, that you're being sincere and genuine, and so you have to lean in with that, with no, you're great at this, but, or I really think you're important when you do this. No, I'm important all the time, not just when I do this, because I need to feel that as a human, that you value me and that I'm important. So I've stopped sharing my screen, and I'm going to bring everybody online. We're at 10:01, so we have come to the end of today's servant leadership. I want to kind of leave you with, 5 things also to think about. But the one thing that I wanted to do, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go back and share my screen, and we'll be done in just 2 minutes. I wanted to make sure that I did this before we got off, and that is a real quick recap. So 7 best practices for putting servant leadership into action. Remember, you have to believe in serving. If you don't, then you can't be a servant leader, right? Build your people up versus looking for your people to build you up. Focus on how many people that you can serve, and that will determine your influence and your impact. It's not how many people serve you, but how many people you can serve. Lead by the strength of your ideas rather than the authority of your position. People will love you and follow you and support you and buy into what you're doing if they believe in why they're doing it, not because they're doing it because you say so. Take more than your share of the blame and less than your share of the credit. Man, people will run through brick walls with people that operate in that type of mentality. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and then help them to become what they're capable of being. If anyone has ever pulled something out of you and helped you to be better at something or helped you to be a better you, all I got to do is say, remember how they made you feel and how you feel about them today. How many people do you want to feel that way about you? And so that is the end. And I thank everybody for being here. And if anybody wants to question, comment, suggestion before we get off, please do. And so it's been a great time. I really appreciate you taking your Sunday morning to be with me. And I know some of us got to get out and go to church. So we're gonna wrap up here. All right. Anything from anybody? Going once, going twice? All right. Thank you so much. And we just pray that you'll have a wonderful day and God will bless you and your family, that all that you do and all that you experience today will be well. And these things we pray and ask you, son, in Jesus' name. Amen. Have a great day, everybody.
Amen.
All
Goodbye,
right.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.